I personally have always believed that no matter what we build, what we create, it is people that matters.
Hello, Shan. Welcome to the podcast. It is fantastic to see you. It's always refreshing to have conversations with you. We know each other for a while, and for a fact, I know how much passionate you are about, talent and the institution that you have created with your co-founders. Has always been talent first approach, and I'm very happy to be talking about this aspect with you again.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Kashyap, for having me here.
Fantastic. Yeah, but before we start, right, I want to understand, right? You had always maintained when you started the Mathco, you always wanted a talent first approach. You were going to focus on this thing. Before we enter the topic, I just want to set the context as to why you're an expert in terms of this. So
Yeah, no. So look, I think I personally have always believed that no matter what we build, what we create, it is people that matters. And sometimes people say there are certain industry segment. If you're in services, then people is important. If you're in product, they're not as important. But look, no matter where you are creating a product, you are creating a platform. Obviously, you are creating a services kind of a solution. Everywhere, the building blocks are the people. And I'm not saying anything new. There are people who have seen a lot more and done a lot more, have always maintained that it is the people who makes or break a company, right? I mean, that has always, not just a company, any organization, any setup, right? You think of a team, a sports team. It is the people, the composition of the team that matters. And we have seen so many times. I can take another extreme example of rock bands, right? Where when kind of people have the right people have gelled together, it has created magic. And when kind of they fell apart. So
yeah,
it is the people which is at the center of no matter what we do. We can, obviously, in an era of artificial intelligence, we are talking about machines, but at the end of the day, it is people who are still building those kind of fantastic algorithms, training them with the right set of data. So there is people at the heart of things. So how do
yeah.
you acknowledge that and bring that to the forefront is what I'm talking about. I'm not kind of doing anything new or different, but doing it more explicitly and talking about it to the world is where the talent first matters.
Yeah, definitely. And the our conversation is going to be around this. I want to understand, right? How does a person straight out of the campus is put into teams to work on projects that deliver data science solutions, machine learning algorithms to the Fortune 500s of the world, right? There is quite a journey and there is a lot of
Yeah.
thing to it. My first question to you is, you have been in the data science industry since the data science industry became a big buzzword since the very start, right? You've been in 15, 16 years. Over the period of time, right? The strategies must have changed, obviously, because it also evolves a lot. What is the campus recruitment strategy, and what are some of the things that impact the strategy to hire the right folks? Are we still focusing only on top tier colleges? Are we going low? What is it? What is your thought process behind it?
When I started, there was nothing called data science. There was
Exactly.
nothing called machine learning, right? All of these, I think, evolved over a period of time. So, though the fundamentals, I believe, Kashyap, remains the same, right? The fundamentals of solving business problems using data, right? I think that has not changed. And if you look at it, also interestingly, the questions that are getting answered over all this period of time, at least in the realm we are in, and I know there are a lot of other developments that are happening, but in the realm we are in, which is core business problem solving, the key questions are still the same. I mean, nothing has changed, right? I mean, whom to sell my product, and at what price to sell the product, how much inventory to maintain, those are really the same. Now, coming to your question on the campus strategy, lot of interesting developments have happened in this space, and I'll try and break it down into two three different dimensions. First of all, when you talk about campus, you talk about colleges, you talk about the education system. Again, from the time I have started and I'm talking about, there was no formal education on data at all, right? I mean, in any way, either in formal colleges or in private institutions or whatever you talk about, right? There is no data or data related education. I'm not even getting to data science. That over a period of time has definitely got much better. I'm not saying that Today, it is taught in every college, in every discipline, which I feel, kind of it should be. But still, there are many more, instances where people are, doing formal education and training in, if you call it data science, in application of data, how to, kind of build some of these algorithms, how to manage data on the engineering side. So there is formal education happening. So that is one part that we have to acknowledge. The other thing that, you also have to understand and acknowledge is, from, if you go back about, again, 15, 16 years, or if you go back 20 years, one other fundamental shift has been that technology has evolved to such an extent that it allows all of us to do a lot of trials, a lot of experiments. And the reason I'm saying this, Kashyap, is, I remember when I started my career, I started doing my first few set of projects. If I have to query a large set of data, it was a time consuming effort, right? I mean, forget about building algorithms, creating statistical models. I'm just talking about querying the data. That was an extremely time consuming process because of, the compute power, the best of the compute power that existed in those days, the best of the technique and the technologies that were available in those days, which means that you cannot be, wrong in the first trial, right? You Because, some of these queries, and I'm not joking, used to take days, right? You submit your query, and then if you're very, very efficient coder, then next day you'll get the outcome, or the day after you'll get the outcome. Now, in that kind of a scenario, and I'll tell you where I'm coming to, right, from all of these angles. Even if you are trying to, kind of be very, very efficient, it is still a really lengthy, time consuming effort. So therefore, for people, and particularly for the newcomers or the newbies, right, whole approach was to get the best of the lot, and people who have some amount of education or training, and I'll tell you where that comes from, and ensure that from the very beginning you are, defining the way one should do that work and do that, make that happen. Because otherwise, it'll take ages for somebody to, kind of try and make things happen. That is the second answer. The third aspect is just availability of information, with all the things that has happened around open source and, GitHub and everything else, right? You have access to the best of the breed, irrespective of which institution you have come from, right? From a college and an education perspective, and where you are currently working. What used to happen, earlier, is that, certain colleges, certain institutions in your mind, not just tier one, like the top tier one, probably will give you more resources because of who they are and how resourceful those colleges are. They can equip you with lot more, right? And depending on which organization you join, right? If I started my career with GE, General Electric. Obviously, if you are in a large setup like that, you also have recourse to some of the, knowledge and the material as to how to, kind of make things work, how to do this segmentation and things like that,
How to navigate in
how
these.
to navigate, right? Not just through people and experts, but also, reading materials, books, and things like that.
Okay, yeah.
Just think today, and, not just today, probably for the last 4 or 5 years, with how the whole, the world has evolved around us. For I mean, the way I look at it, it has been democratized to a fashion that no matter where you are coming from, and where you are currently doing the work, as long as you, is an individual, as a learner of this discipline, is keen, you have access to whatever you want to, right? I mean, through open source, you have fantastic, kind of algorithms, codes, routines, etc., that you have access to. Now, all of these have definitely changed the nature of, getting fresh talent into that industry, right? As I said, over a period of time, it has happened. What you asked me at the beginning, today I definitely see people from a wider range of disciplines, wider range of academic institutions are coming into that field. Obviously, there is demand, which is pulling it, but it is also feasible, and it is enabled by, the things that I talked about. The fact that today you can do experiments in few seconds, you don't have to run queries for days, allows you to give a little bit of a playing field for somebody who is not, already trained in some of this discipline to learn by doing, right? They can do five different ways and learn what works best, and next time they will be better off at that. You
Correct.
have no way that you could have done those experiments, in an world and in an era where it is. So it has become much more broader.
Correct.
As
Yeah.
I said, there's a pull factor, but there is also, changes that has happened from an infrastructure, from a technology standpoint that allows you to, kind of make that happen. I hope you are, kind of getting answer to, where you are getting to. If you need more specifics, I can dive down
Yeah,
into it.
no, it definitely does. It helps us set the context to my next question. My question is also in terms of the technical aspect of it, right? While I do agree with you that it's about the resources as well as the training which happens in some of these institutions, it may be education or educational or enterprises, is probably what differentiates them, and it's important to kind of hire them, and at the same time, you don't overlook the other talent. My question also is some of the colleges, right? So when I graduated in 2015, right, and I studied computer engineering, many companies had technical rounds, but data science was a new, and all the companies wanted to build that talent from the scratch, right? So they did not check talent, they checked aptitude. Is the strategy same today as well, is my question? Or are you now checking that there is some level of technical expertise along with that aptitude?
No. So when you graduated, what you experienced was also not the common practice, Kashyap. I can tell that with certainty. Even then, there are there were enough of more companies who were, hiring fresh engineers in India. Kind of when you go to scout for talent, you'll end up scouting for engineers because that's where most people land up, right? At the end of the day, when you are looking for, particularly when you're looking for engineers, there were companies who were looking at precisely people, with a computer engineering background or a background where they have done enough technical stuff, be it coding or whatever. So the fact that what you spoke about, that you look for aptitude, there was a small segment which was doing it, and you will find this, very interestingly between, if you look at, who are the people who are going to the campuses to hire people, you will obviously find some of these established enterprises going to hire people, all the Oracles and the Googles and the Microsofts of the world. And on the other side, you also find the service providers, right? All the, people who are providing services to these organizations, by doing, by building solutions, by building products. They're also going and, hiring from these campuses, particularly with the service provider world. That's where, and where naturally, by definition, the demand was also higher. There was this trend that got created that let's look for the fundamental aptitude, right?
Hmm.
Let's, and I used to call this, let's hire somebody for who they are and not just what they know, right? And this is
Yeah.
this is important from two aspects. One, not too many people have the know-how. As I said, over a period of time now, there are courses where people are taught Python. They are, kind of learning machine learning, and all of these are happening. You go back 10 years, it was not happening at all. Number one, though there was always computer engineering, there were some courses around IT. People were learning databases, so people were trying to get people from, those narrow definition of people who had got some knowledge. Now, even if they follow that strategy, the pool has increased for sure. But now there are more people, I feel, who have realized that you still have to get to people who, for who they are and not what they know. Primarily because even if they know something very, very well, once they start working, by the second year, that particular know-how will become obsolete. It will not long. So for example, if you're looking for very specific technical knowledge, right? If somebody has, at one time people were hiring people who have knowledge of R, for example, and then quickly, kind of that morphed into, okay, I need people who knows Python, and, so on and so forth. So it'll always keep evolving over a period of time. And the fact that even if you don't have the exact know-how, the learning process, as I said, has become far more democratized, right? More people can learn. If there's a great mentor, great tutor, nothing like it. But I have experienced so many other young minds who have trained themselves leveraging what's available out there in the internet, in the open source, that you need that aptitude. You need that aptitude of somebody who will learn, who is question, who will have a logical thought process, but they may not be from kind of a very specific technical background. They may be a chemical engineer, somebody may be a civil engineer, right?
Correct.
That's what they land up with. It's not something that they control many times.
Hey, I know it's not black and white, but should there be technical rounds in campus hiring? Is my question. Like a very simple question.
No, no. In
No. Okay.
my answer, no, no. There
Okay.
should not be, because that gives you access to a broader pool and the right kind of pool in my mind. You rather
Even
look for
today,
aptitude, logical reasoning.
even today,
Even
like
today,
with the
even today,
technology. Fair enough.
even
Okay.
today.
My third question to you is in continuation again with the second one. Technical skills, okay, but you said the focus is on hiring, people with good aptitude, but some level of technical knowledge, right? It could be statistics, it could be engineering, it could be coding, software, whatever, or some level of engineering, like a STEM background, right? One of the things is, and I don't know, it might be a stereotype, but the soft skills, right? Or
Mm.
when I talk about soft skills, right? Especially two ways. One is interacting or working in teams, delivery teams that work at such a big level, right? Mathco is a 1,500, 1,700 people company, right? Considering that, they are entering this, so navigating that, right? And the second is directly talking, let's say, to the VP of data science in a Fortune 10 company, right? These two soft skills are crucial. I want to come to domain knowledge next as well, right? And which I will eventually. But I mean, you know the question, right? So what is it that what are we doing here? Like what are you doing in terms of
Yeah,
enabling that?
yeah. No, what I mean, you pointed out to a very pertinent challenge or an issue, right? I don't think it is really as difficult as people make out of it, and I'll tell you why. And I'm also saying, and I'm saying very confidently, because I have worked with enough and more of young minds, right, who do both of them phenomenally well, and kind of have surprised me, surprised my peers, surprised my clients, right? Sometimes my clients have come and say, I never knew this person is just 2 years out of college, and he or she was engaging with me at a very different level. So I'll tell you what at least I have done, or I have encouraged my teams to do. There are two things: one at a recruitment level, and one at a post recruitment level, what you do, and both are equally important. At a recruitment level, now your earlier questions become even more pertinent, right? If I would be training, checking for pure technical skills, and I'm doing a technical round, the chances that I land up with, again, human beings are different, right? You are different, I am different. If you go to a campus and you meet, 534 people, almost each of them are different, right? There is no common stereotype, oh, these are all mechanical engineers, these are all chemical engineers. नहीं होता है, right? I mean, you can be a mechanical engineer, I can be a mechanical engineer, but you are Kashyap and I am Shan, right? So we all humans are different. In fact, in our values, we call out something called individuals matter, because individual is an individual. So there, it is very, very important that you look for the right traits, because you mentioned something which is not so uncommon even at a campus level. So, for example, teamwork, right? I absolutely, kind of have a bias for people who have done teamwork in their college days, in their school days. And there are so many opportunities to do teamwork, right? I mean, it could be your college project, it could be a club that you're part of, you are an organizer for your fest, etc., right? There are so many ways to exhibit that you are a team player, you are a you're a social person, you are you interact with others, and you are not just and with all due respect to people who just focus on studies and do very, very well right there, it's just a question of what is a natural selection for you. And I'll tell you, Kashyap, the one of the things that I have always believed, that there are certain things that you just have to acquire, and there's certain things that you can teach. It's very difficult to teach kind of somebody if they're not a team player, by design, by their DNA. I mean, and if there is no traits of that at all, it becomes extremely difficult. Similarly, you can look for people who are, kind of your speakers. When you talk to a VP, what do you need? You need certain amount of guts, you need certain amount of courage, you need certain amount of, that mindset that, look, yes, I may be young, I may be new to this, but I will, I'll give it a shot, I'll try. And for that, sorry, I'm giving out some of at least my personal secret sauces. I always No, I'm just joking. I look for people who are passionate about one thing at least, and it could be anything, Kashyap. It need not be, it need not be domain, it not be technical stuff. Somebody is very passionate about photography, but it has to be real passion. When somebody is passionate about something, I've seen that passion can be translated if you can make them like the work that they do into something, kind of bigger, and they, kind of don't care as much about all the mental boundaries that, how can I talk to this individual who is 25 years in this business, 30 years in this business, and know so much more than whatever I would acquire. So they, if they are, kind of passionate about something, they develop that, kind of that courage and the muscle. So I look for people who are passionate about one thing. It could be sports, it could be photography, it could be anything, honestly. Debate, that's great. Somebody is a avid quizzer, and but you have to look for real passion and not fake passion, right? Sometimes people are trained well for their interviews, for a long period of time. That is at an acquisition level, but you have to, you have to acknowledge that that's a skill that you have to build continuously. So therefore, post hiring somebody, acquiring the talent, you have to, kind of have structured effort put in to give people the right exposure, make them do work as teams, right? I mean, even during the training phase, and maybe we can talk in details about training as well, but you make people do work in teams, right? So that you can start observing who is doing better at that, who is lacking in that, and how can you push them more. You have to make them present. You have to make them present at least within your company, our company. We have, I have some my other peers and my senior leadership team who are also like your clients, kind of very senior people. So how do you make them present to them, and kind of get questioned on different things? So you have to also create that environment, right, inside, acknowledging the fact that this will not happen naturally. This has to be
Yeah.
cultivated, this has to be built.
Yeah, this is very interesting, this thing. And I think one of the things is for me, right? Personally, I'm speaking, this importance of having a passion came very late. I realized it after, because usually during your late teens, early 20s, you just want to hang out with a few friends, just do the usual stuff, be at your usual adda and then chill. But then as you grow up, you realize that there should be at least one thing that, this thing. Then but that's a very interesting perspective. And I think that kind of can be also translated to not just technical knowledge but also domain, like so somebody an avid quizzer or somebody this thing. But my question to you is, right, and this is a debate which I had with a few other leaders. Like it was a conversation with a few other data science leaders, and it went to a point where everybody was looking at each other and are you recording or not, because the debate the debate was, is domain knowledge really overrated? Is it really that important? Right? And what's your take on it in terms of, obviously you're not going to get a computer engineer with a strong hold of BFSI or retail knowledge or a life cycle of a drug discovery, right? But what is your take on it, especially, and how do you prepare it?
No, I mean, if you look at the industry today, it is definitely overrated. If you look at any JDs that is floating out there, everybody wants everything, right? Like you said, they want them to be the best coders. They want them to be knowing everything about retail. They want them to know. However, I will also let you know that it is extremely important that you understand the domain. Now, do you need that when you are hiring people? Because we are talking about campus. In
Hmm.
campus, you don't expect people to know domain at all. I mean, come on. I mean, like, we have been in colleges. When you are passing out from colleges, what you understood about domain and industry. I get floored with, in the recent years, when I go to campus, and I still love to go to campus, right? Whenever I get a chance, I actually go to campus and do the final round of interviews, which people called as HR rounds, right? So become the, kind of the best HR, which in the college, in the final round is always the HR round, and my questions are also very HR-ish oriented, right? Typically to people, I don't, because somebody would have tested for at least the logical reasoning, the core aptitude. Then I try to look for this passion. I try and look for this, but I get floored with at least a few of them who are again very passionate about automobiles. I mean, again, need not be, but how much of automobile that they know, right? And at least with some of the, the technical thing, like gadgets, I find people who are very kind of passionate about gaming. That's another one. How much, at least on the gaming industry, they really know, not just play games, but really know who are the key players, what is happening, what is now next thing that is coming out. But look, those are exceptions. I mean, in my mind, if you are, and let me first address the young talent. I mean, either from colleges directly or people who are in the first 2 3 years of their career. You don't expect domain, but you should know that the moment they come on board and they start working, you have to figure out formal and informal ways to get people up to speed on domain, because without a decent understanding of the domain, and I'm not saying you have to be an expert or anything, but I always say that in a domain you have to understand that how a company, a retailer, a CPG company, a bank, an insurance company makes money, right? you have
Mm,
to you have to understand the whole supply chain, right? I mean, where does what service or product gets produced, how is it getting sold, who is buying it, and how does the money flow, right? So that people have to learn. Some people are, and as I said, if they're passionate enough and you can ignite that passion in the workspace that they're doing, they do a lot on their own, and then you build some structured, kind of a learning around that. However, again, it differs from, kind of people to people, in a sense that for a enterprise who's a bank, for at least some of their mid to senior level hiring, I can understand that they would need somebody who would have understood, kind of banking. Now, by doing that, they are obviously narrowing the pool, which is true, because then you're going after those 100 people who have been in the banking industry, kind of for the last 10 years, and then you're narrowing it down to it. But but I can understand at least the urge to do that, right? Because that's what they will be doing for their job. And for a player like us and people who are industry agnostic, work across different industries, even us, for very few specific roles, when I'm hiring, at a mid to senior level, mostly at a senior level, I would absolutely look for somebody with good domain knowledge around retail, because I want to, build on to that expertise. These young people that I talked about, for them
mm,
to be acquainted with the domain, I need somebody. I would need at least a couple of people in the organization who will do that on a regular basis. So
mm,
it is important, but not in general. I mean, in general, not for any organization. Believe me, even for the enterprises in general, also, at least for the analyst level, for your young senior analyst, whatever you want to call them, or data scientist, senior data scientist, you can look for certain skills and augment the domain knowledge, right, based on the
correct.
ecosystem that you have, right?
So
But
yeah,
you may want to hire for very specific roles, where you
yeah.
you need that expertise.
Yeah. So we touched on domain, we touched on technical knowledge, we touched on soft skills and the overall strategy in terms of which kind of colleges and all of this, right? Considering all these factors, right? Now I want to talk. I mean, we have addressed many issues while we are talking, but now I want to talk about actually how it works, right? Now these people are here and from campus, they are in your office. They're It's their first day. They're the CEO is coming, the leadership is coming, and they're talking. It's at least 2 to 3 months before they actually start working in teams, and at least 8 to 9 months before they actually speak with a client, right? I want to talk a little bit around that journey, right? And making them prepared. Firstly, what are some of the most common challenges that you've seen, right, in preparing them? How the next 9 months? How are you kind of addressing it? What does their journey kind of look in that? And maybe if you can touch a little bit on the, how Mathco does it, like, personal touch. So,
Look, I think the reason, this is a topic that we touched at the beginning, right? That what is happening with campus strategy, so on and so forth. And still there are enough and more, particularly enterprises, who don't do any campus hiring still today. And the reason is very easy to understand, not very difficult. Because if you are hiring from the campus, you have to be prepared to invest in them for a fairly long period of time. And depending on how your business model is, and this is no like good, bad, oh, those guys are not doing the right thing, I'm doing the right thing. It's nothing like that. It
yeah,
depends on what your business model is. You can or cannot afford to do that kind of an investment. So it's a solid investment between 6 months to a year, in my experience, till somebody really become at least productive at a good analyst level, or at a good young junior data scientist level, whatever you want to, or a junior data engineer level. Now, what are the challenges that you face? Let's first address that. So during my uh, first day of my address to the freshers, one of the point that I always talk about, that till they join the enterprise side or the corporate world, right? I mean, till they were student, they were in college. All of their success and failure, so all the effort that they have put in to succeed in certain things, or the lack of effort to not succeed in certain things and therefore fail, ultimately mattered only to them. So if you kind of do great in exam, you'll be topper in the class. People will say good things about you. Yeah, your parents will be happy, very happy. Your relatives will say, look, Kashyap is such a good student. He's academically so good, and vice versa also. If you're not doing well, your parents will be, kind of very very frustrated with that. Your relatives will say different things. Your friends will not get closer to you. In school used to happen. That
That
guy is not a good guy, right?
that
So
sounds more like a Kashyap.
no, but if you think about it, ultimately it will not affect anybody else. It will only affect you. The first thing that happens when you move over to the other side, to an corporate side, your success and failure will start impacting more people than you. You do something well, it's not that only you are, kind of, you obviously are becoming a great employee, etc., etc. But whatever team that you're part of, you're contributing to the success of that team. Whatever organization that you're part of, you're contributing to the success of that team, right? Just because you have done very well, yes, your school or college can say, oh, the topper this year for the state came from this college, but that's one mention. I don't think nothing fundamentally changes. But in this world, I keep telling people that if you don't put in that effort, that attention and that passion to make something great and successful, your failure need not be just your failure. It can be an organizational failure, because what happens in at least in our world, that if I don't do that well and the client is unhappy with the outcome, I may not be, working with that particular, institution at all, and that can be, it's sometimes scary, can be attributed to an individual's effort as well. Sometimes, right? I mean, you don't want to call it out. So the first challenge that you find is that shift in that mindset, that now
Mm,
it is no longer just me, but it is about us. Like, truly. Before also you can say, in college as a team we did that. By the way, again, if somebody has played sports, particularly team sports, or done some team activities, I think they come with some of that understanding much better, because
mm,
they have faced that, right? I mean, your success is not your success, your team success, right? Your failure is not your failure, your team's failure, right? And again, avid quizzer, if you have a team of four, if you don't do in the round that you are supposed to be in answering most of the questions, where people relied on you and you failed, then so whoever has done some kind of a team activity other than your the usual academics, the way it is taught in our country and in most of the world, they come with a better sense of that. So that's the first challenge that you find.
mm,
The other challenge is doing the experience of doing a real project, in a sense solving a real problem that exists, which will help kind of a large enterprise, or any enterprise make a decision. Because so far what you have done are all in the lab, right? You have done mostly, and again, there are some people who comes with some very interesting experiences. They have found source for themselves and have done that. But you don't come with kind of very ready-made knowledge of what a real project means, right? So to give that experience. So in order to address that, as I said, kind of the fact that it's not just you and it's us. One, you keep talking about that in every instance. I said that I start with that in the very first day, but most of the leaders will do that, and definitely in Mathco, kind of my team, they do that in every instance that they meet with the teams, or meet with the freshers. That is one part of it. The other part of it is you start, like I was alluding in my last question also, you start making people understand that, look, most of the time you will not be the sole individual. You will be a group, a team, which is responsible for the success or the failure of a particular project or a particular endeavor or particular engagement, whatever we want to call it. And that experience has to start from day one. So what we do is, while obviously we train people on hard skills, soft skills, and again on hard skills, it is very important that you learn how to learn in the future. Because I can teach you certain kind of certain, obviously we do some SQL, some Python, some fundamentals, but we also tell them that, look, this is not something that will take you for all of your career. I mean, be prepared, in the next 2 to 3 years this will change. So get to the fundamentals. Don't just get at the syntax level, right? So don't just look at kind of the working of it, the logic, how it is working. So we try and do some of those training in that way, from a hard skill perspective. Even for the quant method, stats, or some of the applied mathematical things, instead of just saying that, okay, this is the equation, this is the formula, we try and go into some of the theories that has led to that, right? So that you understand something is like that. Clustering, this is the classic example I think. On the other side, from day one, you make people do all through this training, right? Parallelly, they also execute on a project. This is a real project that we would have done in the past. This is a project where either the data is available on our side, because when we work with our clients, the data resides on the client side, or we create. Nowadays you can create synthetic data. You can create you know at least dummy data, reliable, decent enough dummy data that people can actually work on. But the problem statement is real. So you form a team, you allocate a mentor for the team, you allocate a client for the team from within the company, so that as they're learning the different techniques and methods and technologies, etc., they're applying it on a real project, but also kind of working as a team of four, sometimes team of three, team of four, right, where the dynamics is something that they are learning, and you can also observe, right, based on whoever is running this whole program, the team that learns this program, they keep observing, right, I mean, who's doing better at that dynamics, who is not doing it. So that dynamics needs to be created, that it is a team, it's not just the individual. If you do well, this whole team will be called out, right? They will be very, very successful. And some of the scoring methodologies in India, unless you give some scores or at least some grades, nothing works, right? I mean, if it's just like that, so you at the end of it, have to have a certificate, you have to have a score. That mechanism is uniform for the whole team. So on an individual training, they're doing what they're doing individually. But for the team, if it's a score
Mm.
of 100, then everybody gets 100. And if it's a score of 10, then everybody gets 10. So that starts making people responsible, kind of question each other, responsible for each other, which honestly, kind of you don't care, before you start on the work. So that is, kind of the feeling of that it's a real deal, it's a real problem, because now we appoint a client as well, and the client asks questions that, okay, tomorrow if I have to, you're saying that this data is not giving me an answer, but tomorrow I have to run a real campaign. What should I do? So that's when the rubber meets the road, right? That yes, your data might give you a ideal theoretical answer that look, there is no optimized solution for this, but I still have to figure out a strategy for my client to actually go ahead and run the business, right? I can't say, oh, data is not telling me anything, sorry, I can't do anything, right? So that don't work here, right? Okay, let's give
Mm.
me a new project. There is no new project. This is a real deal, right? This is a real life. So that's how, kind of between 3 to 4 months of very intense, full classroom style uh, training, along with this capstone project that happens, and there's a mid presentation, like it happens in a project, right? You don't go and
Mhm.
do the final presentation. There is a presentation after the the data collection round. There's a kind of a presentation after your univariates are done, your data is in a shape to build your whatever algorithms or models that you're trying to build. After you build a final outcome, you do. So we do follow that kind of a kind of a rigor, right? Or there's a WBR. Every week you do a review with the client and you get asked the right questions. So through that training and through that experience, they do it. And then you obviously are part of one of the project teams, though you're not kind of integral member, in a sense. You are not part of the team as the team works with the client, but you are shadowing that team for another, again, depending on how good and how quickly you adopt, another 3 to 6 months, just shadowing that team through every instance, through what a call is, what a scrum is, how the work gets planned, do some of the actual work parallelly to do that. And then, kind of your, at least somebody is allocated to evaluate you or throughout this process and say, now you're ready for the floor, or you're now ready for a project. It's a fairly good investment, fairly,
Yeah,
decent investment that you have to make. Time, effort, money, resources, energy, everything, right? I'm not just talking about money here, but all kind of infrastructure, real estate. If you need 100 people to be going through that process at the same time, you need to kind of plan accordingly.
I think that's a very made me relive my days. I think it you gave a really nice journey into what these 9 months look like, right? And it's always very fantastic to talk to you about talent, especially Shan. I think we have had these conversations many times. You bring in a very clear perspective. Is any last messages to newer campus recruits who look to make a career in data science?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So as I said, kind of I say a couple of things to all of them. The first one that I already mentioned, that once you are in a job, you are on the corporate side of the world. Your success and failure is not just your success and failure. It is not even your team. Depending on what organization you're part of, sometimes it's an organizational success or failure. Right? If you're in a mammoth large organization, it may not matter as much, but many times people prefer to be in young startups, mid-sized companies, rapidly growing companies. But believe me, that has an additional effort to it. That is number one. The other thing I also tell people that there is, particularly with, sorry, this will get a little philosophical, but I think it is very
No,
important.
I
And
think this is important. Yeah.
no, I'm saying most people appreciate that as well. That people, when they're out of college, right? Because in college, because of our exam system, marking system, most things are very black and white. There is always this expectation of fairness, that everything has to be fair. If I put in this effort, this outcome has to happen. If I do this, then this has to happen. If I don't do, the real world in the job, yeah, is in the medium to long term, things are fair. I mean, I don't disagree. But in the short term, on a week to week basis, on a month to month basis, on a quarter to quarter basis, things may not be fair, right? In whatever way you define as fairness, right? And there is an overarching need for fairness, is what I find is a crippling factor sometimes, right? That I want this to be absolutely fair, absolutely black and white. Like the example that I gave, right? I am in a team of four. I am giving the maximum effort, so the maximum kind of return should come to me. It doesn't happen that way, right? You're a part of the team. That team overall succeed or fail, and more importantly, the organizational succeed or fail. So you might be giving disproportionate effort, you might be disproportionately successful, but it is overall organizational success or failure that gets reflected on you as well. So there are, in many ways, it need not be you are expecting a particular role or a position, but for many different reasons that may not happen. So this expectation of fairness, particularly in the early stage of your career, is
Mm.
is way too high. And I only say that, look, in the medium to long term, there will be fairness. I mean things cannot be kind of disparate for a long period of time, but you cannot get restless for that, right? That's the only other thing I will tell kind of youngsters. The final thing for employers, right, who are looking
Yeah.
to hire our campus graduates. Look, time has changed, time has evolved. One of the things I already mentioned, that when I started my career, things were very regimented, things were very properly defined, because as I said, there was not too much room for deviations. Even if I want to try three things, I just cannot, because trying three things means 3 weeks of effort, right? Whereas it needs to be done within a week. So you have to do the right thing from the beginning, and somebody will mostly tell you. But today we are in a world where I keep telling this in probably in every conversation. You have heard this many times telling me. I'm a big fan of Daniel Pink and Daniel Pink's theory of AMP, which is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. For the youngsters, particularly those are starting their career, freshers out of college campus, it is even more important. Today's youngsters, kind of definitely looks for autonomy, right? The right-minded ones. They look for a little bit of a wiggle room to do things their way, to experiment different things. Don't necessarily want to be kind of, though they are new to the business, they want guidance for sure, but they don't want to be micromanaged, right? So that's how I look at autonomy. That you give them a broader purpose. There comes the other P. That you give them a purpose. You say that this is what is required. These are some of the best practices, but you have to leave them a little bit to kind of play around, and you have the luxury to do that, right? Today you can experiment 5 different methodologies, 3 different data sources, 6 different KPIs, with lot of kind of productivity and efficiency, and you can still get to the best answer. But in the process, the person will learn the best, right? I mean, that is very important. So give a purpose, create that purpose that can ignite that passion that I already talked about. And M is mastery, which I'm talking about. Today's people look for learning, look for mastery. That I need to know certain things really, really well. So keep looking at, are you constantly providing learning opportunities? Because what people call out at the end of the day are learning opportunities, exposure. Some of the I get very, very kind of pleasantly surprised when there are very young people who realizes that kind of some amount of monetary incentives here and then really doesn't make or break your career, at least at the early stage, right? They are smart enough and mature enough to say that it is the learning that matters, it is the exposure that matters. I'm not saying necessarily everybody, but a good chunk, a good segment. So please respect that, and follow on that path of AMP that I spoke about.
Fantastic. On that note, Shayan, I think one of the most beautiful conversations I've had with regards to data science, not related to Gen AI for a change,
Thank you.
but
Thank you for that. Yeah. Gen AI
thank you.
productization. Sorry, I do that every day. But as you rightly said, always, kind of has been very close to the talent, to the people, and love, and want to talk about that, to just share my experience, if that, kind of also helps somebody. That's great.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kashyap. All the best. Bye.